and welcome to my presentation entitled Kyara-ka Characterizations, Technologies, and Tensions of Embodiment for Local Tokusatsu Action Heroes in Miyazaki's 10-song coding Himukaizer Media Mix. I'm Debra OCCHI of Miyazaki International College, and here in this image you can see 5 of the main heroes of the Himukaizer franchise. They are the Guardians of Himuka, which is the historical name for Miyazaki Prefecture, in which these heroes are located, and this photo is taken in front of Aoshima Shrine, whose legend is embodied and enacted in one of their video narratives. They are a brand of local hero, Gotochi hero, that enjoys prominence in Japan nowadays in alignment and in some overlap with the Yurikara phenomenon. So just to give some definitions, a media mix action hero identified strongly with the locality and its characteristics would be considered a local hero. They often wear very colorful costumes like color rangers. Action, and I take this definition from the Action School advertisement that Himukaizer had on its previous webpage, which is a performance of offense and defense while breathing together, and with the aim of raising group consciousness and particularly to cultivate healthy children. Tokusatsu, which is this genre of broadcast, is something that we think of in Katsuno's definition particularly as involving transformations from human to hero, as we often see in National Super Sentai, and fantastic characters, often the villains. However, in the local hero genre, this could vary. We don't always see transformation from human to hero, at least not in the Himukaizer sense. Some local heroes don't actually do the kind of action fighting. I've met heroes of anime song, for instance. And sometimes the villains aren't actually readily apparent. Although we do have villains in Himukaizer. Here's an example of one of the lower level kind of villain henchmen. Okay. All right, so Tensou coding, if you see in the slide, it says Kataritsuge. That's his catchphrase. He's a charismatic leader with the intent of reviving the local legends of the Kojiki, which are located in Miyazaki Prefecture, and to create new ones as well. And like I said, sometimes the villains do henshin, and oftentimes they're very fantastic. There are various technologies that are employed. That's the main theme of this talk. And in the slide, you'll see in colored orange the parts of this in which I participated as a participant observer anthropologist. So starting with the Corporeal Technologies, in which the visible image of the character is created through costuming the human body and masking the head or face. This is a very typical kind of Super Sentai mask that you would see in these types of productions. But you also have the bodily habitus of action hero style fighting skill and choreography. So the very ability to take these poses and to move in these ways is a big part of the transformation into an action hero. Also, there's the use of tools such as swords, claws, harpoon, shield, and other kinds of props. Voice acting with speech features, and in this case at least, including dialect. And then there's, of course, the typical technologies of production, which include what we would consider camera post-production, voice recording, sound effects and light effects, and video manipulations. And further onto this, and this will require particular attention in this talk, are also the distribution technologies, which create the portability of narratives, both in videos as DVDs, YouTube, and VR, printed goods, various kinds of souvenirs, children's literature products, the use of voice in radio. They have a radio show. They do public service messages. They had actually created a hand washing video to teach children, and we're doing some live performances of that prior to the COVID virus, which I'll also talk about. And with that change, they have expanded this use of social media. They have various social media. They were already starting to do some live streaming. And with the expansion of that with COVID, they turned into doing solo style interaction. And again, that's now expanding with more players on the stage at once, with the relaxation of the isolation of Miyazaki. And so in the next slide, we'll see a short clip of the national Super Sentai franchises. Here's a kind of mashup from 2020, and you'll see the kinds of colorful costumes and tools of transformation in this movie advertisement. which goes for 15 seconds.
劇場版ニューソージャー VS ルパンレンジャー VS バトレンジャー新ヒーローも登場スーパー戦隊ムービーパーティー2月8日全国ロードショー
Okay, the next flyer, this very colorful flyer, is a group shot with all the names around it of the participants and sponsors in the 2018 Local Hero Matsuri Festival, which I attended in Chiba. Himukaizer heroes actually went themselves and participated in 2019 and did get a sort of physical national prominence through that. But they have also attended comic conventions in the U.S. West Coast for several years and have done live performances in a few of the schools on the West Coast and things like that. Abroad, outside Japan, there are some other local heroes, and I do invite you, particularly if French is your comfortable language, to look at the Japan Heroes Project, which is partly involved with the French Himukaizer, who I saw at the 2018 Matsuri, and the Hong Kong Dream Guardians is also mentioned there, and I had the chance to meet them in Chiba at this Matsuri. So there's some good information, there's some very background information about their general reflections on local heroes and some interesting reflections from the perspective of a group of people who have started out with a passion for Super Sentai in general and have turned to local heroes in particular and even produced one. Okay, Himukaizer originally came to Earth. Tenson Korin Himukaizer is the name, and Tenson Korin means descent from heaven and is taken directly out of one of the Kojiki narratives. Tenson Korin Himukaizer descended from heaven on November 23rd, 2011 in a live event in Nichinan, Miyazaki. He was introduced in the boys magazine Terebi-kun, which is published by Shogakukan, in 2014 in July in their Local Hero series. And also has self-introductions on the website as well as in the Himukaizer magazine. In the magazine, you can see that computer graphics have been used to recap the video special effects, including a villain's transformation from the OCCHI character here into the snake god in the bottom middle of that page. The webpage further introduces various official activities, offering further information about the characters, the basic storyline, the local filming locations, events, media, and even sound clips of the hero's self-introduction. So you can really get a sense of media mix technologies. You also see advertisements for the line stamps, which I have sprinkled throughout this presentation. And you will see on the lower left, you'll see a bar advertisement for the Moshi Moshi Himukaizer project, in which children are able to call the production office and talk to one of the heroes about their everyday life problems. As part of the participant observation of this ongoing research project, I took adult action school lessons for a year and would have continued them had I not broken my leg a year ago. And the clip that you'll see here is not the regular action training in which we mostly did sort of punch and duck activities and kicking and kickboxing into pads and so forth. But this is a special monthly lesson which included dancing and sword training. And I can vouch it's a very physically demanding work. You have to be willing to sweat a lot, and you really do synchronize your breathing with the people that you're working with, because you have to, of course, be very careful when you are physically throwing a punch that the person that you're aiming at is not actually going to be hit. So there is a lot of interesting sort of corporeal technology involved with this that you wouldn't get in other kinds of, I think, contact sports and various kinds of martial arts training. There is something very collaboratively exciting about action. It's a combination of danger and a deep level of care for your interactants in this mock combat scenario. is a trailer for one of the productions that they had, one of their most recent video, in which they crowdfunded fan involvement to a very deep extent. And I also took part in this as a sort of low-level investor, but was able to do some behind-the-scenes work with fans who were occupying various roles, and worked on fandom a bit with that project, which I won't really talk about here.
Miyazakiのヒーロー大晦日に降臨。
ヒムカイザー、約束して。この戦いには決して二人を近づけないと。必ずあの子たちを守り抜くと。
Let me back up a little bit and show you their typical live performances. Here is a slide of a local festival in which you see the costumed action players on a small stage, and then the audience of people sitting usually on the ground or maybe in folding chairs watching them outdoors. The tents to the left and right are where the staff and the technology equipment is stored, the special effects, the sound equipment that they use. The action is done to a choreographed sound script, which is played over the loudspeakers, and they must align their action movements and the rest of their acting to this streamed soundtrack, because it also includes the special effects that happen when the punches are thrown, so that it gives the effect of the person actually being hit, and seems very much like you're possibly watching one of these television shows where you see a lot of the embedded special effects as well. After the performance is finished, however, some of the players will change into plain clothes and interact with the audience directly by selling souvenir goods and helping facilitate handshaking and photo opportunities with some of the main characters. And so you have this mix of people that are still in their character role and people who are in the staff support role. And the various goods that are sold are some of them are various sort of tchotchkes, and others are everyday use items such as notebooks and towels, and we'll see some examples of that in a moment here. Notably, there's a sort of gachapon style machine, one of these cranked, the capsule drops out and you open the capsule, and inside is a fortune very similar to what you'd get at a shrine, and one of these little pin badges that will have the various characters. This happens to be the two young women who work as MCs and usually wear little short yukata costumes and guide the crowd in various activities, including staying away from the stage, cheering to support the characters at certain moments of crisis, and staying until the end of the show so that they don't disturb any other of the visitors by getting up and leaving. Okay, so in the crowdfunded video, this was the Kamikui Kohan, or the God Eaters Part 2. We could see that characters who crowdfunded at a higher level could portray themselves as DIY heroes. They could create their own sorts of costumes and engage in this kind of kyara-ka, expressing their own fandom and expressing their own will to partake in this performative video. This also afforded a lot of time for backstage interaction with these people. They're normally families with children, and what we saw was a lot of people bringing out toys, not only things like this, but sort of Ultraman toys and different other kinds of hero figurines from the Super Sentai franchises that they were also consuming and that their children were also fans of. And so here we are at one of the locations. This is a historic terraced rice field. This is the big battle scene in which everybody who wanted to partake could come and be a zombie. Some of the taller men were able to be power zombies. You can see at least one of them there has very long red hair. They're in the front. And in front of them, in the costumes, the full-body costumes, are the three main villains of the Kamikui trio that were the stars of this two-volume set. Okay, and then the videos that are made from this, the crowdfunded video is still in production, but the existing videos that are now put up onto YouTube are also available for sale as DVDs in a local clothing store. On the right-hand side of this slide, you see the line stamps that I have been sprinkling throughout, and this affords a technology for individuals to use the Himukaizer emblems and heroes and some of their catchphrases in sending messages and sort of using that voice as their own. And in the middle, you see a Facebook post, a very typical pre-COVID Facebook post in which they advertise one of their live events. And it was through Facebook that one of their problems emerged. Someone, a prominent local person, took some photos of them doing plainclothes practice before a live event and posted it and asked sort of randomly if these were the people inside the costumes. And this resulted in a scandal because, you know, really think of the children. We are not really supposed to talk about the idea that the heroes that they come to witness are actually the people who, you know, have human guise. Okay, so some other ways that the Himukaizer has been using local technologies and also promulgating their image is through the production of products that they themselves aren't selling. And here's an example from actually at my university. We have a vending machine from the local drinks company which sells this Huguenots water. Huguenots is a local citrus fruit that spontaneously mutated in Miyazaki, and so it's very fitting that this local hero would be the one to represent it. It's also kind of interesting that the probiotic that's in the product, it's listed there in the red diamond at the bottom right corner, is called a shield lactobacillus, and on the bottle, of course, we have the image of the pink Sakuya Hime bearing her shield, just above where that is in the graphic. Okay, and then there are, of course, the spontaneous renderings of Himukaizer fandom that people use, creating using various technologies. On the left, we have fan goods created by a woman who would sit and do hand stitching during her lunch hour. And on the right-hand side, this is one of these typical projects you see children undertaking at preschools. They do Mother's Day and Father's Day drawings of their parents. Here is a rendering of what would you like to be when you grow up? And the answer is Himukaizer, and the drawing is a very typical preschool children's drawing. Okay, so we have all these various technologies by which the people who animate the Himukaizer characters become the characters, and also ways in which fans have animated themselves, and various ways in which the characters are manifest in other sorts of goods and circumstances. But what has really happened between the abstract that I wrote for this panel and the presentation itself, of course, is the emergent data that anthropologists always encounter during participant observation. And so I must answer the question of how this hero franchise has dealt with the COVID-19 virus, with the kinds of isolation that this has entailed. And so for this group, all their events are canceled. There is no action school going on right now. You can't go and learn how to do the mock fighting. There is no direct fan interaction. So the hero broadcasts on YouTube continue. They have made some newer broadcasts. They have uploaded some of their other footage that was previously available only on DVD or in the yearly broadcasts that had been shown locally. And the action team itself has taken on new roles, converting their foray into live streaming into solo performance. And I have to mention that they were already doing live streaming as plainclothes action performers prior to COVID-19, and taking a lot of interesting interactions with fans into a new level. So these are live streaming events, and I'll show you some screenshots where fans are sending items to the heroes, to the actors, I should say, and they are responding to these things in real time, and they also had some choreographed pieces that they themselves had prepared to share. And some of this has really opened up in some interesting ways since they have been forced to do solo broadcasting in order to show solidarity with the isolation that was in effect in Miyazaki and across Japan. And so what we find is we learn a lot of their skills that lie outside the range of action per se, and we see that they are able to use the live streaming technology for a different kind of Kyara-ka, not as the heroes themselves, but as an action team who are identifying as players of particular roles under these circumstances, and still able to motivate their existing fan base and to attract new fans from across Japan. So here's some screenshots of what they are doing. In the morning, we get the one of the players who has a very strong exercise dance background. She does an hour routine where she does a 30-minute sequence of various moves, and some of these are during this live stream interaction, she at some points is quite far from the camera and can't react to fan comments. But when she comes near, you can scroll through what fan comments you've missed, and so she'll react to whatever people are saying, the kinds of clapping hands that they're making. If you're part of the family, the so-called family of the live streaming channel, you can make tags to this so that other people may be induced to want to join and watch and see what's going on. And in following clips, you'll see that we also throw items, free items you can garner for watching, but also paid items that you can use to show your fandom and to hopefully increase their slight income that comes up from this live streaming activity. So you can see in her broadcast, particularly 3 of the items, the souvenir items. On the left is the notebook that one could previously buy at the live events. In the middle is a collaboration tissue pack that one can receive at the local bank. And on the right is a towel that was made in very limited distribution with the characters on it. And so we can see that this allows the display of these kinds of official goods and lots of comments and mutual support, the kind of banter that you get on other types of live streaming like Twitch. And the fans themselves, we are all using nicknames ourselves, and so this kind of technology actually affords us a sort of Kyara-ka transformation from our normal official selves into these persona who are fans of this channel. Okay? And then the actors themselves are embodying different kinds of action that involve their skills. On the left, we see the creation of a net covering for a glass buoy. In the middle, we see the spontaneous creation, and this was in response to a fan request of a Kirby character, and I happen to have a Kirby, so this is what Kirby typically looks like in the character sense. But this actor was asked to manifest a Kirby, and to be honest, I was the one who asked, and I knew that they had a pink balance ball in their set of tools, and so I was curious to see whether they could actually manifest it. This particular actor's manifestations of minions and Kirby and what have you usually involve a lot of use of gum tape, and you can see the black tape there. So that becomes actually part of the technology in an extemporaneous way, and we fans, as he prepared to create these extemporaneous performances, we could often hear the tearing of gum tape, and so the idea of gum tape as a exciting kind of meme just erupted as part of our banter while we were waiting for him to prepare these extemporaneous performances that we had thrust upon him in this live streaming venue. On the right-hand side, we see a partial image of a map of Japan that has been handwritten, and you'll see various tags that are listed upon that. Those are the avatar names of fans, and the color indicates how many stars they have earned by participation in the sharing of items. And along with this, you can see on the right of this long string, which is Miyazaki, the idea that identified with Miyazaki, of course, is Himukaizer, because each of the fans in the different areas was asked to contribute something special about their area that they would have enjoyed the action team to know about. Okay, so in this next slide, you can see the kinds of technologies that we are foisting upon them. We are throwing them these virtual items. We can send them hearts. We can send them things like this Nippon Ichi background. There was a special event where we would send them objects of knighthood, and their job became to respond to these in real time, just as they are reacting to the fan comments and so forth. And so we are using technology, and they are responding in a kind of characterization that was entirely unplanned as part of the original Action Hero franchise, but has certainly emerged as part of their behavioral adaptation to COVID-19. And so we fans and they have formed what they call a village. In the software itself, there's the phenomenon of families, where people who are strong fans can have sort of backdoor interactions. We can have a comment section. We can be privy to know their status in the ranking of channels, so we know how much they're making, basically, through their broad streaming. And we actually have become kind of a group in other interesting ways. At one point, very recently, one of the fans from Yokohama sent some very famous local delicacy, these shumai dumplings that had been mentioned in a previous broadcast. And so in honor of that, they decided to hold a shumai night. And so all of us fans who were privy to this information changed our avatar names to something having to do with shumai and changed our avatar pictures. And so the action performers themselves really at first did not know who we were. And so we used the technology again to change ourselves into these sort of shumai characters. And while they use the Himukaizer imagery in the background as we're enjoying the action team that supports them, they're not directly identifying themselves as the heroes. However, they are still performing a kind of action of give and take with the fans. And in doing so, they are creating their own Kyara-ka, and actually I think we fans are as well. And the shumai night was a particularly attenuated example of this, where we created a sort of chaos by obscuring our usual identities in these kind of shumai guises and trying to see whether the action team could guess who we were before eventually revealing our actual avatar identities behind the shumai identities. And then in the following evening, and from there on, most of us have shifted back to our usual avatar names and gone on with our typical interactions. So just in summary, you can see that there's this inevitable dependence on various technologies of Kyara-ka in the Himukaizer media mix. And this starts with the really basic, bodily habitus of the action performance, the concealing of the actors' identities as they animate the characters, and I mean this in Silvio's sense of animation, and various other technological affordances that take more or less prominence depending on the context of these appearances, whether they're live or recorded in some way. And whereas in the context of the live performance, we can possibly meet some of the people involved, or we can get even more deeply involved by joining action school. And particularly in the case of taking on this crowdfunding activity, where we could even meet the other fans in real life, we have had an interesting kind of reflux to that in the live streaming events that have taken place in the wake of COVID, where instead of going to the hero performances, we are engaging in the action team performances, and as fans, some of the existing fans in the Miyazaki fan base are present, but also a national fan base is expanding as well. And so we can enjoy these kinds of mediated performances in the meantime, going back to watch the videos on YouTube, using the line stickers, and these other kinds of technological affordances of the Kyara-ka consumption of the Miyazaki Himukaizer media mix. Thank you.